The New South Wales government is facing serious questions over its response to Sydney's asbestos crisis.
This morning, as Liverpool West Public remains closed, MPs are still no closer to providing answers.
It is not just the mulch being removed, there is other soil being removed because of potential source of contamination. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
We're 90% of the way through the removal. It's quite slow work with heavy machinery.
And when it is cleared as safe to go back, we will communicate with the parents.
I think everyone around Australia is going, I mean, how on earth does this happen? And the government response, I mean, it leaves a lot to be desired. From all, let's bring in today medical expert Dr Nick Coatsworth just to talk about the health ramifications of this, potential ones at least. Nick, good morning to you. What is the risk of asbestos exposure?
Fortunately, Carl, it's very low in this situation. There's a couple of reasons for that. The first one is the asbestos in the mulch is mainly bonded asbestos, which is difficult to inhale. It's in an outdoor environment, and whilst it's in the mulch, it's not sort of getting aerosolised in a situation where you can breathe it in. But I do understand the concern because, of course, asbestos in the 80s and 90s in Australia was a huge deal, and the big cases for Bernie Banton and Wittenoom mine and the cases against Boral for industrial manslaughter, all those sort of things put asbestos in the forefront of our minds. But I'd like to reassure parents that the risk is extraordinarily low from this. It still needs to be cleaned up, of course it does. Still needs to be cleaned up, but the risk is low.
What's interesting too, Doc, is that different states have different rules around this kind of contamination, right? And I guess the parents out there are concerned about whether their children have run through the infected mulch or whether they've picked it up, or what happens then.
Well, that's true. People could have run through the mulch, but if we look at some of the data from the ACT, where we had Mr Fluffy houses, where there was friable asbestos in the roofs of houses and people were living in them, there was an increased risk, but was still a very low risk compared over your lifetime, maybe 2.5 times the standard risk. And the standard risk is only 4 per 100,000 for men and 1 per 100,000 for women. So this is the risk of mesothelioma, which is the condition, of course, that the Wittenoom miners suffered from when they were literally breathing in clouds of the asbestos dust.
All right, interesting stuff. Meantime, a panel of Australian educational experts are investigating the aftershocks of mass school closures during COVID. What have they found out?
This is important stuff, Carl, and I think it's been done because of a vacuum in a government-led inquiry here. We really haven't examined the effects of the COVID school closures. So Peter Shergold, Head of New South Wales Education Regulation, and Anne Hollands, Children's Commissioner, amongst others, have found that increased rates of truancy, poor completion of school, only 27% of New South Wales school leavers completing Year 12, increased violence at school, all of these increased as a result of the school closures in COVID. And we really need to consider whether that was an appropriate thing to do in 2021. And I think we might need to admit that it was the wrong thing to do, and it didn't have the benefits that we thought, and it had significant costs.
Yeah, we've got to keep learning from these things, don't we?
That's for sure.
Hey there, Today fans. Sarah and...
What's my name again?
Oh my goodness, Carl.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel, though. Subscribe now for more news, special reports and amazing Aussie stories.
And Carl misbehaving,
Whoa,
of course.
that never happens.
Always happens.
What's she talking about?